Hello and welcome everyone to our next lesson from our geometry course. This lesson is the angle sum of polygons. So before we begin, what equipment are you going to need? So you are going to need your maths book, pen and calculator. So if you don't have them yet, pause the video, get your maths equipment, and we'll resume the video once you're ready. All right, so hopefully everyone is ready for the lesson. I guess during this lesson, we're going to be learning how to find the angle sum of polygons. Not just the triangle and quadrilateral, which we've looked at already, but I mean any polygon. Theoretically, we only need to go up to decagons for this course, but the method we're going to learn is going to teach us how to find the angle sum for any polygon, no matter how many sides it has. Now, not much point in learning how to find the angle sum of a polygon if you don't know what an angle sum is, so here we go with our first lot of notes. So make sure you get the heading and this first note in your books. You may need to pause the video if you write a little bit slower. But the angle sum is just the total of all the angles, right? So if you've got some polygon, let me give you an example. You won't need to copy in what's in green here, right? You've already sort of got the triangle before, but I'm just going to use this to illustrate the point. So just get the blue writing in as your notes. But if we look at this triangle here, what is the angle sum talking about? Well, a triangle has three angles, 1, 2, 3. And we learnt in the previous lesson that those three angles for any triangle, when you add the angles together, it'll equal this thing called the angle sum. And for a triangle, it happens to be 180 degrees. We're going to learn how to find that angle sum for not just triangles and quadrilaterals, but any polygon. So this is the angle sum that we're going to be learning to calculate for this lesson. And that's kind of the extent of this lesson, to be honest. All right, so moving on to some angle sums that we have already learnt. So the triangle, I'll be honest, the triangle is the only really important one. The angle sum of a triangle is the only shape you need to memorize. And in this case, it's 180 degrees, right? So if you can remember that one number there, you're actually going to be good for finding the angle sum for all the other shapes. But I have put the quadrilateral, if you look at the shape below, here it is. It's got four sides. So this is the sort of shape that we call the quadrilateral. And again, we've already learnt that the four angles of a quadrilateral, they add up to, in other words, they have an angle sum of 360 degrees. Now, I'm just going to point out that you're going to get sick of writing angle sum for every single question. And that's the same for maths teachers too. So you'll often find people use an abbreviation. And for us in our course, and again, it's not just limited to our course, it's pretty common. A capital S is what I'm going to be using to represent the sum or the angle sum of our polygons, pretty much from this point onwards. Now, you don't need to copy this section into your books because you already have the angle sum of these two shapes already in your notes. So we'll just get straight on in, but I just wanted to illustrate the point how the triangle, the quadrilateral, the angle sum is different. And every single polygon will actually have a different angle sum. So again, that can be really daunting. It's like, well, I don't want to memorize a different number for every single polygon. But again, we're not about memorizing here. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you a trick that's going to allow you, with just the angle sum of a triangle, just from that one only, I'm going to show you a nice simple way that's going to allow you to find the angle sum of any polygon. Minimal memorizing required. So let's get in and see how that works. Okay, so here we have ourselves a pentagon. So we've got the 5 sides. Hopefully I've drawn it correct. Yes. Okay, so we do actually have a 5-sided shape. Now, what are these 5 angles going to add up to? Right, I'm referring to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got 5 angles. What's the total of all these 5 angles? Well, it doesn't matter what sort of a pentagon you draw. Just like the triangle and quadrilateral, if it's a polygon and it has 5 sides, those angles, no matter which way you draw your, what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. no matter which way you draw a pentagon, it will end up with 5 angles, and those 5 angles will always add up to this one special number. Now, which we call the angle sum, right? Well, how do we work it out? Well, pick a corner, or what we call like a vertex, and it doesn't matter which one you choose. You can just pick, the first, second. It doesn't, here, I'll just randomly pick this one here. From this vertex, what we're going to do to find the angle sum is create triangles within this pentagon. So I've picked this corner here as my chosen corner, and it wouldn't matter which one you choose, you're going to end up with the same number of triangles. So go from this and combine up every vertex you can, which will form a triangle. In this case, there's 2 diagonals I can draw, and it's generated 1, 2, 3 triangles. If you want to know the angle sum of this pentagon had 5 sides. That's meant to be a 5, by the way, not an S. It has 5 sides. Well, we ended up creating, from 5-sided shape, 3 triangles. So the angle sum, the sum of all of these angles, will just be equal to 3 lots of 180. Remember, every triangle has an angle sum of 180 degrees. So if this pentagon can be broken up into 3 triangles, its angle sum will just be 3 lots of 180. Typing it into your calculator, you end up with 540 degrees, and that's the angle sum. That's it. If we look at another shape, for example, here we've got a heptagon. So we've got 7 sides. Let me just double check to make sure I know how to count to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, good. All right, so we've got ourselves a heptagon here. What would be the angle sum of this heptagon? Again, pick a corner, any corner you want. It doesn't really matter. I'll choose this one here. It's closest to where my pen was. Again, how many triangles will be created here with a 7-sided shape? All right, let's go. So I'm just creating as many triangles as I can to capture every single one of our heptagon angles. All right, so it looks like we've got all the angles covered here. All right, so how many triangles did we end up with? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this 7-sided shape ended up with 5 triangles. So our angle sum will just be 5 lots of 180. And you type it in your calculator, you press equals, and you found the angle sum. It's 900 degrees. So don't be memorizing, a heptagon is 900 degrees, the pentagon is 540 degrees, and every single other polygon. Instead, we can use this rule of creating triangles. We can actually simplify it even further, because I'm suggesting we don't actually draw the triangles in, because there's a pattern that ends up happening. If we look back at this pentagon, it had 5 sides, which ended up forming 3 triangles, 3 lots of 180. Ultimately, all we have to do is say, hey, we've got 5 sides, take 2 away from that 5. You end up getting 3. That will tell you how many triangles there are, 3 lots of 180. If we look at the 7-sided shape, again, how many triangles did we end up with? We ended up with 5 triangles, which was just 2 less than the number of sides. So a 7-sided shape, take 2 away from the 7, and then times it by 180, and that'll give you the angle sum. Now, before we move on and look at the actual rule and finish off the lesson with some questions, I'm definitely going to get you to make sure you get this pentagon and this working out in your books. So copy in the pentagon, and let me just illustrate it with a cloud. And this working out here, have that in your books just so you've got it all there nice and neat. Pause the video if you need to. And do the same with this one. The heptagon, make sure you draw a 7-sided heptagon. It doesn't really matter if it doesn't look exactly the same as mine, as long as the shape has 7 sides and it's a polygon. And please copy in the working out for it as well, which is 5 times 180, which ends up equaling 900. All right, so now that you've got those 2 examples in your book, let's look at the rule. So if you want to find the angle sum, all you need to do is just take the number of sides the shape has, minus it by 2, and then times that by 180. And that'll give you the angle sum for any shape. That's all you need to do. Count up the number of sides, take 2 away from that, and then times it by 180. And it will always give you the angle sum. All right, so definitely have this rule in your books. Once that's in, let's look at some questions and we'll finish off this lesson. All right, so here's 4 questions that we'll do together, and then there'll be some questions I'll get you guys to do on your own afterwards. So we're going to calculate the angle sum of each of these shapes. The first one's a hexagon. So all you need to do is decide, hey, how many sides does a hexagon have? It has 6 sides. So the angle sum, right, capital S, it'll just be, take 2 away from the 6. So there's going to be 4 triangles. We're going to go 4 lots of 180. We type that in our calculator, and I'm pretty sure you end up with 720 degrees. If I make any mistakes with these numbers, you guys, just tell me in the comment section, and that'll be cool, just so others know. The second shape is a decagon, right? A decagon has 10 sides. So our angle sum, again, just use the rule, 10 sides, take 2 away. That's going to form 8 lots of 180. You type that in your calculator, you press equals, and you've got the angle sum of a decagon, right? It's got 10 angles, and those 10 angles will all add up to 1,440 degrees, hopefully. The third one's an octagon, 8 sides. So to get our angle sum, we're going to go 6 times 180. Type it in your calculator. You end up with 1,080 degrees, or like a 1080. If you're into like skateboarding, whatever, or surfing, and if these numbers are seeming familiar, it's because, they're like lots of 360. Think of the revolution, doing a 720 or 1080, refers to like how many spins you're doing. It's not a coincidence because we're going up by lots of 180. But anyway, that's kind of a little bit irrelevant. And the final question is a quadrilateral, right? That's a 4-sided shape. Now, again, we've already covered the quadrilateral, right? In previous lesson, the angle sum's 360 degrees. But I told you, you don't even need to remember that. The triangle's the only one you need. Triangle is 180 degrees. If you need to find the angle sum of a quadrilateral, well, and you forget that it's 360, you can just use this rule for it. A quadrilateral has 4 sides, so take 2 away from that. You're just going to go 2 times 180. Type it in your calculator, and not surprisingly, you get your 360 degrees. This one simple little method allows you to find the angle sum of anything. All right, so definitely please make sure you copy the examples with solutions into your book, and we'll flick on over when that is done to the final lot of questions, which I'll get you guys to do yourselves. All right, so here they are, 5 questions only. You've seen the method for doing it. I'm just going to get you to find the angle sum of the pentagon, heptagon, the nonagon. If you've forgotten, I'm happy to tell you now. I'm not really testing you on how many sides each shape has. I just sort of want you to get comfortable with using this rule for finding the angle sum. So 5 sides, the heptagon has 7 sides, nonagon is 9. For the final 2 questions, you'll just need to count up the sides yourself and then work out the angle sum. Question 5 I actually think goes beyond the decagon, but again, that's going to be no issue for you with this method. So pause the video here because I'm about to give the answers and see if you can work out the answers yourself. Once you have solutions for all 5 questions, resume the video and we'll go through answers. All right, so hopefully everyone's had a go at answering these questions themselves. You should have ended up with the first one, the pentagon. That was 540 degrees. The heptagon, we actually sort of looked at these first 2 already, actually. That was 900 degrees. The nonagon, I believe that's 1,260 degrees. Either way, it should be 7 times 180, so hopefully that's what you got. Question 4, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. We've got ourselves a hexagon. So you should have done, was that 4 times 180? You should have got 720 degrees for that one. And this final one where you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 sides. This one here, when you times it out, you should have ended up with 9 lots of 180, which ends up being 1,620 degrees, I believe. All right, so hopefully you got these answers. And that's all you need for this first lesson, just the angle sum. And again, if it's a polygon, use this one rule and you have no dramas finding the angle sum for any polygon at all. All right, thank you, and I'll see you guys next lesson.